Hi, my name is Angela Harris. I am a senior at Grand Valley State University, majoring in public and nonprofit administration, and I'm double minoring in marketing and business. Currently, I am the assistant outreach coordinator for the Panos International Center. So today, I'm just going to be talking to you about my experience in Namibia, studying abroad for 6 weeks. So, during summer 2019, I studied abroad in Namibia for, of course, 6 weeks. So for the first 2.5 weeks, we were studying at the University of Namibia, taking 3 classes. One dealt with language, so we learned a little bit of Oshi Wambo. Another dealt with the history and cultures of Namibia, and the third one dealt with geotourism. So what geotourism is basically just like a it's basically just talking about how Namibia uses its tourism industry to promote sustainable practices and to educate the tourists who come to that country about just environmental change, climate change, wildlife conservation. Um, so during that time, we didn't really have like a lot of different like assignments and everything. The way it worked is, we got up, we went to the university, we had breakfast there, and then we had classes that lasted about like 3 or 2 hours, depending on like which class it was. And we just had our lectures and maybe like a little assignment just so we can like have a better understanding of what we just learned in our lectures. And then um we would have a break and then we get to like go around like kind of like explore the campus. It's not that big, but it was big enough to explore. Then we'll have lunch and then we'll come back and do our classes again. And then we would head back to where we were staying. So we were staying in like these lodges, and that's basically like hub central for all the tourists who come into Namibia. So during that time, we were staying there. Different tourists from all over the world would come there and stay there, and they would go out into the field and they would do like whatever they had planned to do while they were there. For those first 2.5 weeks, we would travel around like the capital city, Windhoek, a lot, and we did a couple of like different field trips. So we went to like museums. We went to like a conservation site that was nearby the capital city. But after those 2.5 weeks, we went out into the field for another 2.5 weeks. So during that time, you are sleeping in tents. You are traveling 70% of Namibia. So during that time, we went to different conservation sites, and during that time, we had lectures. When we were at the conservation sites, we would have hands-on activities. We will also do like 3 or 4 hours of game drives to like each like camping site we would travel to. So every camping site we went to, it was by a national park. So we would travel for like 3 or 4 hours within that national park and do a game drive, and we would just basically we're just seeing like animals in their natural habitat, which was a really really great experience. And I never like knew how much like fun game drives could be. It's literally like playing Pokemon Go. If you want to see a specific animal, it's like you're traveling out and you're trying to find that animal. It's really exciting to see animals within their natural habitat. It's nothing like I've ever seen ever in my life. Um, at this point, I can't even go to zoos anymore because nothing can touch what I've seen, like when we were doing those game drives. So when we were out there for those 2.5 weeks too, we went to like we saw like different landscapes. So like we went through the savannah, we went through the desert, we went through the coast. For about a day we got to just explore the coast, which was really fun for me because I've never been to a beach before, and they're like seals everywhere, and so like they don't mess with you as long as you don't mess with them, but you can get really close to them. We even got really close to like a baby seal. We thought it was dead, but it wasn't, thank God. um so another thing that you do while you're out in the field, so like Namibia is really known for like their sand dunes. So like they have these really really tall sand dunes, and we had to climb one of the sand dunes called the Big Daddy. It's really famous. It takes a minute. It is a lot of work. I am not in shape, however, by the grace of God, I was able to climb the sand dune. But it's really funny because I don't know, you feel like you've accomplished literally like everything once you get to the top because it's such hard work. So another thing like for like conservation sites while you're like going there during those 2.5 weeks, So you get to do like different hands-on activities, and you learn a lot about human wildlife conflict. So like the conflict between like the animals that are like staying in Namibia, the local animals, and then like local farmers. And there's this thing where like, of course, farmers, their animals, their livestock that they have, that's their livelihood. And of course, you have animals that are staying there, they have to eat somehow. So there's a lot of like that conflict and that tension, and just being able to like know like where you draw the line and certain things like that. So, one of the heaviest topics that we talked about during that time was the Namibian genocide, and that's when German colonizers came into Namibia and basically, like, literally almost like wiped out like a lot of their ethnic groups. This was years ago. I didn't know that this was something that happened until I actually made the choice to go to Namibia, and I did a little research about it myself. So that was one of like the most heaviest and emotional topics for me to learn about, which was something I didn't expect, because of course you learn a lot about like, racism within the United States and then slavery, but then I get to this country and I learn about this, and I'm at museums like learning about this horrible thing that happened, and it's just, I don't know why I couldn't, I broke down when learning about that. But it's something that everybody needs to know about, and something that like literally everybody needs to hear about, because that's something that you don't really like know about at all, and nobody really knows about like Namibia that much. But Namibia is honestly really a great place to visit, and a great city abroad trip to get a part of, even if you are not a history or education or biology or environmental like science type major. Even like if you're in like business or marketing, or if you're like in other majors as well, you can find like a way to be able to connect your major with what you learn. So for me, marketing and business minor, I was able to connect with what I study within those minors to the conservation sites that we went to, because conservation sites are nonprofit organizations, but they need like people who are in business and people who are in marketing in order to help them run the conservation site, one, and then two, be able to get funding for that conservation site. So if you're in marketing and business, this is actually a really great program for you to go to if you're specifically like geared towards working in a nonprofit organization, because generating funds is a really huge thing for nonprofits, and that's something that's really useful to know. Most of the conservation sites we went to, they talked about like a lot of internships that they offer. The students that we interacted with on those conservation sites, they were interns as well, but they were from like different parts of the world. So they do accept interns from like literally everywhere. So you can go there and have a marketing internship, or you can have a biology internship as well. While we were at the University of Namibia for those first 2.5 weeks, we didn't really get to interact with a lot of the students that were there. We only like interacted with like several of them, and those were the students who were designated to like show us around. But during that time, a lot of the students were in finals, or they were leaving to go home for like their break because the semester was ending. But of the few that we got to like interact with, it's really interesting to like just hear how they see us and what their perspectives of Americans are. And then it's just interesting. You learn how similar you are, but at the same time how like little things are like little differences between you and like the locals there. And Namibians are really friendly. That's something that you need to know when you go to Namibia, because in America, we sometimes aren't the friendliest, so stranger danger, stuff like that. But in Namibia, it's not like that. People are so open and willing to talk to like people they don't even know. It was a stretch for me because I'm an introvert, but you fit right in, even if you're an introvert. And the people you travel with, even if you didn't know them prior before, you literally become a travel family and you become really so close. Dr. Buckridge is a great professor to travel with. He's so much fun, and he's just really a laid back, cool professor who's literally done everything throughout his life. He's lived in like so many countries, and hearing about like his stories growing up and like his different stories living in different places, you will never be bored. traveling with Dr. Buckridge. I didn't know it before, but when I told like my job, like the people at my job who I was working with on GVSU's campus, they were so jealous that I was even just traveling with them. And in my head, I'm like, okay, what is it about this professor that everybody's so like crazy for and they love him so much? I didn't realize it until I actually traveled with them. He's literally like the best person to travel with. But if you're really interested in traveling to Namibia, I say go for it. It's really a great place to go to, and I would really love to go back and just for like vacation there. But it's a lot of like heavy stuff that you deal with and heavy stuff that you learn about while you're abroad in Namibia. So you have to be emotionally prepared for it, mentally prepared for it, physically prepared for like all the exercising and the hiking and like the dune climbing that you're going to do. So you are never bored. That's one thing for sure. You're never bored. Another thing that I didn't mention was when you're traveling for those 2.5 weeks within the field, you travel with like this tourist company. So we traveled with Wild Dogs. So there are 3 people who came with us. One was Ian. He was like our kind of like our professor in a way. He gave us lectures while we were traveling. There's Raymond, he's the driver, and there's Cleo, who is literally like the best cook ever in the world. So you have a cook while you're traveling, and they feed you breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You are definitely fed while you're out there, so you don't have to worry about like anything like that. Another heads up with traveling out in the field, so there are a lot of like spaces where you do end up like showering like in the cold outside. I highly recommend that you bring like as much sweaters and like fleece like warm pants as you can, because it gets really cold in the desert, super cold. And then if you have to get up and go to a shower, it's brutal. But all in all, if you're interested in Namibia, I highly recommend it. It was literally the greatest experience of my life. And because of me studying abroad, so many opportunities and doors opened up for me after that. So I definitely recommend it. If money's an issue, literally there are ways around it. Literally, if I didn't have any scholarships, I couldn't go abroad at all, but I was able to get my entire trip funded for it. Depends on how much you want it. So I definitely recommend it. Don't let anyone or like any little thing hold you back. Just look at all your options before you just say no. But I hope you guys enjoy this video, and hopefully you guys get to study abroad too.